Hello everybody, today I'm going to be looking at this Virginia creeper, which is a vine. I actually managed to air layer this, or ground layer it rather, into the pot after it came over the fence from my neighbour's house, and I'm going to try and make it into a self-standing, self-supporting, well, like a weeping vine affair. Now I know you're thinking that's not much of a bonsai, and yeah, it isn't, but they all have to start somewhere. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get this out of this pot. I'm actually going to put it into this large blue drum pot that I had for Christmas. I know some people would be aghast at the idea and think that it's not ready for a bonsai pot yet. I don't really have a tree for that pot. I'd rather it was up on the bench with a plant in it than tucked away somewhere, possibly get smashed. I did toy with the idea of putting a literati teddy bear obtusa in there, but in the end I decided not to. So I'm going to use it for this. I think the autumn colours of this were absolutely marvellous. This last autumn, spectacular red, I think will look really nice against that blue, so that's what I'm going to do. Possibly a little bit early to be doing a full repot, but then this is going to be more of a potting on than a repotting, although I am going to take some of this old potting compost off. Remove the cane. Obviously this isn't self-supporting at the moment, and I shall have to do something about that. But it is kind of trying to stand up a little, so that's better than out, I suppose. This pot's full of holes, so it's have to be slung. It's had a few years service, but that's the end of its career now. So here's where the stem went into the soil and came back out again here, and is obviously rooted in the middle. So I'm going to have to try and find those roots. They'd say this was just a pot of potting compost that I put out, pegged the vine into the top, covered it with a bit of soil, and allowed it to root, which it did quite well. I did put 4 or 5 in, only this one rooted, and I did another pot with some more with the idea that I might fuse them, but they have not rooted as yet. I've just checked them, they're still alive, but they haven't rooted, so maybe if they root this year they can be incorporated with this plant into the pot at a later date, and be fused together. But for now, here's what I've got. So I'm gonna remove all of this portion. Has very little in the way of roots, and just shorten those roots back slightly so they'll fit radially in the pot, and yeah, comb them out a little. That should do quite nicely. Okay, so just to address the issue of going into a bonsai pot too soon, I think in actual fact the volume of soil in this bonsai pot is not going to be vastly different. In fact, it might even be slightly more than there would be in this pot that it was in. So effectively it's going to work almost like a training pot and a bonsai pot at the same time. I've prepared the pot, put in my drainage screens already, and so all that remains now is to put in some soil and put in the tree. But before I do that, I know the tree needs some support, So I've constructed this little wire ring with a piece of wire sticking upwards that I'm going to place in the bottom of the pot, like so. And then to that I'll be able to add a cane, because this pot doesn't have the depth to really support a cane. This wire will just help hold the cane upright so that it can support the weight of the plant. Just gonna tip some of this in. Take the scoop out, might help. This is a slightly heavier mix than my normal mix. I added extra soil-based compost to this to make it a little bit heavier and heftier for the tree. Oops, that was what I didn't want to happen. There we go. So that's good. I'm going to add to this controlled release fertilizer, generous amount. Hopefully once the tree gets its roots down into this, I'm not going to mix it right into the bottom because I want it to leach down to the bottom, but hopefully that'll give the vine a good bit of oomph to get going with. A little bit more, particularly here in the centre where the tree's going to be sitting. So now I'm going to place the tree. I'm not going to use any tie wires or anything because it's going to have the cane to support it. It's got the roots spread out quite nicely. Interesting piece of movement here. Okay, so I'm liking that. Yeah, I like it. So, top it up. Make sure we get those roots nicely buried. Now I know it's not quite central in this pot, so I might just try and move it over a little bit. That's better, a little bit more that way, so it's coming out a bit more central. It is always quite nice to have, well I feel anyway, a tree centrally in a round pot like this. Again, because it was almost completely bare rooted, which wasn't my original plan, but the soil all came off in one fell swoop. It's neither here nor there about getting soil down in between the roots. It's more sort of got it underneath and now it's on top. Okay, so that's quite good. So I need to give this a drink, settle the soil around these roots, and then we'll come back and have another look as I tie it up and work on a little bit on the top. Okay, give it a nice drink. Plenty of water. As I said before, the kitty litter in this can be quite dusty at times, and that dust will really clag up your compost if you don't rinse it through in that first first rinse through, it really is important to get out any dust that might be in there. Someone asked me what happens if you don't get all the dust out of your compost. Well, this is what I've just pulled out of a bag of potting grit, and as you can see, it's just turned really solid. That's because all the small dust particles have sat together with all the larger gritty particles. It's filled in all the spaces, and then it's just compressed into this sort of hard lump, which, although I can break it up with my thumb and fingers, you don't want that sat in a bonsai pot, because that's not going to be easy for the roots to push through. And that's why it's important to wash out your grit by putting plenty of water through on a first wash, rather than just giving it a bit of a wet, and then it can begin to dry and set into a hard, useless mass. Anyway, I hope that's a useful bit of information for you. Okay, it's starting to run through the bottom now. Holding quite a surprising amount of water, to be honest. But yeah, there we go. That's good. That's running out to the bottom nicely. Okay, so now I'm going to take my piece of bamboo and I'm going to place it over this piece of wire, like so, and the wire is going to hold it upright and stop it wobbling around too much. The tree can then be wired to the cane, and hopefully we won't have any rotting of the cane at the bottom, so that cane can be used for a few years. The more the plant fills the pot with roots, the firmer this will become, at the same time as the top becoming more firm, more wobbly perhaps, and needing attention. Okay, so I'm gonna put a couple of pieces of wire just to hold it in place to the cane, and I'm actually going to wrap it around this cane a little bit. That'll give it a bit of movement, and then I'm going to put a second piece of wire at the top here, here, because I'm actually going to prune it just here above a leaf joint, because I want some taper. So now I'm sure you're looking at that and thinking, that's going to be a long time to bits of bonsai, and yeah, probably it will be, but these grow really rapidly. It's not a Russian vine, which grows hugely rapidly, but it's a Virginia creeper. It has a good rate of growth on it. I really want it to grow probably about a stem about 1 meter high, and then allow the top to cascade, rather like I said, a weeping willow. And can I pull it off? Who knows? I never know if I don't try. So just give you a bit of a 360, and then this tree is going to be put in the shade house, out of the way, out of the wind, and let it recover, and hopefully it will begin to shoot next month. Okay, so that's about all I want to do to this tree. Hopefully it'll eventually get as tall as the cane, about 1 meter high. At the moment it's probably 40 centimeters, 50 centimeters. If it breaks, lots of side shoots, so much the better, because that'll help thicken the base of the trunk. But eventually I shall want to bring it back to just a single stem to the top, so where it can branch out rather like a weeping willow. And as I said, it has this rather gorgeous red autumn foliage, which I think will look nice against the blue of the pot. Thank you so much for watching. Please do take care of yourselves. Stay safe.